It's not every day that my good buddy Robbie Garrison is in town. Robbie, welcome to my house.
Thanks for having me.
Robbie's from Birmingham. Sometimes he visits his family. And when he does, sometimes he calls me up. And when he does, sometimes we get together. And when we get together, sometimes we play the trumpet. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to play some excerpts. Thought we'd share them with you just so you could enjoy. So I think the first excerpt we want to do together is the end of the second movement of Dvorak 9. It's where the theme comes back, but it's big and bold and brassy. One of my goals is to try and be as stable as possible in this excerpt. I want my sound to be nice and secure, and I want my time to be very clear and hopefully easy to follow. And also I want to pace the ritardando as it goes along in such a way that it's easy to follow. And then also I'm trying to manage the color differences between a very loud and bold and sort of brassy color all the way down to this more intimate color by the end of it.
As a section player, I try to match the intonation and I try to follow what the principal is doing whenever they are playing. If anything, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing a nice buzz in my ear and that lets me know that my intonation is pretty solid and that I'm matching the color of what the principal trumpet player is doing.
Let's give it a shot. For me, it's pretty cool to be able to sit down with Robbie, someone I literally never play with except for when he comes back and visits, and be able to hear some of these resultant overtones and the buzz that's going on like he was talking about. If we had a rehearsal to work through these things, it would take almost no time, I believe, to figure things out in terms of how to play together and intonation. And for me as a principal player, when I have people in the section, that's kind of like priority number one. Can these people that I'm working with figure out what I'm doing and make me sound better than I sound by myself? Do you want to add any thoughts to that?
Yeah, and so one of my So as you could hear, when we just went through that excerpt, I had to make adjustments as we were playing on the go. And this is very common for successful section players. If you want to be a section player, you need to be able to change and adapt to whatever they are doing.
As Robbie just said, some of the stuff that happened was because we weren't necessarily matching. And in a professional scenario, it's almost always going to be the second player's job to be able to figure it out and to match as quickly as possible. But as a principal player, I try to be very cognizant of my own weaknesses, my own things that I might be bringing that could be causing this kind of not being able to play together, I guess. Things like intonation. Am I in tune? Am I playing my intervals in a way that makes sense? Is my time good? Are there things that I could be doing that could make it even easier to follow me?
So the next excerpt that Ryan and I are going to be performing is Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, the opening to the whole first movement. My goal is to be present, powerful, yet supportive, and make sure that I hear the principal at all times.
And for me, what's nice about someone who's trying to be that supportive is I don't have to work too hard then. I can just sit right on top, and it's a really nice unified sound instead of me trying to hammer it away and kind of ruin my face before we really get too far into this piece at all.
So one of the challenges as a second trumpet player in this excerpt is the octaves. You have to match octaves with the principal player, and I like the challenge because it's easy to tell once you're out of tune or you're not matching to the principal, and it's quite an easy fix. Whenever I am out of tune, one thing that I love to do is I like to pull back in terms of dynamic or volume and just make sure if I'm either flat or sharp that I make that adjustment, make sure that it is correct, and then I come back into the music as present as I should be.
The final excerpt we're going to play in this video is the opening of the fourth movement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. It's a great excerpt that appears in a lot of auditions because it goes between octaves at certain points to the horn thirds, right, where you have octaves, thirds, sixths, depending on where you are in the arpeggio. And then there's also differentiation in terms of intensity. So the beginning of it is very big and boisterous, but then you come back into the texture when it's not as important, and then you come back out again. So there's just a lot going on in this excerpt. And for Robbie to not only try to figure out what I'm doing in terms of musicality, but then manage the intonation aspects of what's going on is an extra special challenge, I would say. Would you agree?
I would agree, and also making sure that even in the lowest of the register that I am still matching your articulation.
Let's give it a shot. So we're going to do it again. There was one spot in there where I felt like I wasn't as clear as I could have been about when the next note was coming, so I feel like we didn't play as beautifully together. Obviously, Robbie was not a big fan of the very last note. So we're not going to talk about anything. I'm just going to make a couple of adjustments. Robbie's going to make a couple of adjustments, and we're just going to see what the difference is. So I'd say definitely better. What would you say?
Definitely better. There's still things on my end that I could have done a little bit better, but I felt like I was able to follow you pretty easily. I think you were doing everything right. This is more on my end.
And that's sometimes how it goes. Things aren't always going to be 100% perfect. When you're in the midst of an entire orchestra, a lot of the stuff can get covered, but at the same time, sometimes it's easier because you have all of these other people in this huge pitch center to play with. So some of this stuff is less about can I play in tune with Robbie or can he play in tune with me, but it's can we just fit into what the orchestra is doing.
Being a skilled second trumpet player is something that you are not either good or bad at, but it is something that you can develop over time. And the reason that I met with Ryan today is so that I could work on developing these skills so that I can be a better second player. So by doing this is helping me keep the consistency, although I do not currently have a job. And I felt like during the summer, it would be nice to meet with people like Ryan who are in positions or people who are currently doing what Ryan is doing and just work with them and to develop your listening skills and your adjustment skills.
This year will mark my 11th year in the Alabama Symphony Orchestra and my 12th year of playing principal professionally in orchestras. I feel like I've developed a lot of great skills, but one of the ways that I feel like I can continue to be a good leader is if I actually put myself in positions to be able to play section so that I can remember what it's like, I can see what things I think make a good leader, and I can try to be those things for people that I play with. I think it makes me more empathetic in total to what's difficult about playing section and how much can I help someone be successful in that role. Being a great leader as a principal player or being a very skilled supportive player as a section player are just a few of the skills you need to be able to be successful in an orchestra. Another really important one is to understand how to use articulation to create color. I have a video on that I did with a colleague of mine from the Alabama Symphony Orchestra. So if you haven't seen that and you want to check that out, click the video on the screen. We'll see you in the next video.